2025. It's 5:02. This is our Board of Education study session. We will go ahead and begin by indicating who's here. Our head clerk.
Clark Nelson.
Karen Winder. Chris Wynn. Kim Chandler.
Julie Jackson.
Ben Horsley.
And Nicole McDermott. All right, thank you all for being here. We're going to first turn the time over to, we just have 2 items for study session this month. We're going to turn the time over to Rick Anthony, who is our Chief Information Strategic Plan.
Information Technology Strategic Plan. Thanks, Board President, Board members, Executive Leadership Team. Here to present on an update to our plan. Purposely use the word update. And the reason why is you'll see on here, and I'll speak to them as well, that there's some items that we're still sorting through. Getting feedback on, getting input on to make final decisions. You will notice, if you have a copy of this slide deck, you probably looked through it briefly at any rate, you'll notice that it looks real similar to Granite School District Strategic Plan in the sense of how it's just structured, the bare bones of this plan. By way of information, I leveraged a lot of the strategic plan presentation in slide deck form here. So this slide just speaks to a strategic plan, what you're looking to do through priorities, through objectives, and through actions. We've also drafted up a vision, mission, and goals within information technology. And when I say this is an update and it still needs feedback, is it really hasn't gone out beyond the information technology group. We have a information technology steering committee or a technology steering committee that will review this and give feedback. Obviously, your feedback tonight will be incorporated. And then we plan to put it out there to schools, principals, etc. There's some principals on our technology steering committee, but just on a larger audience to get whatever feedback they might have. Our vision in information technology in Granite is to produce a service environment where technology, access, continuous improvement, and innovation work together to consistently exceed stakeholder expectations. That's a mouthful. But as you've experienced in working through crafting vision and mission, there's certain key things you want to hit on in those, and then you're wordsmithing to have them flow fairly well. Our mission is to deliver superior stakeholder service and resource access while optimizing efficiency and advancing innovation. That mission you're going to see in our priorities. Our priorities are made up of service, access, and we use the word, well, I'll get to it here in that third priority. Or sorry, goals. Oh, wow. Luke, I clicked on something. I'm going to maybe need your help. Did I click on something that did that? Not sure. Now I can click. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Luke. So similar to Granite's strategic plan, there's 3 goals, 3 priorities, 3 objectives within priorities, and measures throughout. So our goals in information technology, goals are something that we want to be able to measure. And so the one that looks very similar to Granite's strategic plan is the goal 3, students. We wanted to make sure we saw beyond just technology and linked to the broader vision of the school district. So we combined a couple of goals from the district strategic plan and went with Granite students' graduation rate, English and math proficiency will increase by 1% yearly. So that's speaking towards the school district strategic plan goals. Information technology goal 1 and 2 are a little more specific to information technology and measurable for us. goal 1, information technologies work order aggregate user satisfaction response will be increased yearly. What that means, or how that looks in action, is when someone submits a work order, they need something fixed, they need something done. After that is complete or marked complete, it emails the user and asks the user, how do you feel about what happened? And so we're using that quantitative measure to aggregate and come up with a number on the whole for a year's worth of work and be able to meet that goal. We use increase yearly, so we'll set a baseline, and then depending on what that baseline is, we'll look to have that continually improve year after year. Goal 2 is the stability of the network and digital tools will increase yearly. And this is a measure it's a little bit challenging. I'll speak to it when we get to that element, but it's trying to find a quantitative measure to say what does stability mean. And I'll dive into that. This is just a visual showing how it's organized. Up at the top, you have the 3 goals. You have our mission statement, 3 goals, and then you have the 3 different priorities. Within each priority, let's take the service priority on the left. You have 3 objectives. First objective is related to service level agreements, and I'll speak to that. Second is communication and collaboration, and third is technology coaching. These are 3 objectives. If we meet these objectives, we will obtain the level of service that we want to obtain, and we're prioritizing that. So we're prioritizing service, access, and this word optimization. We picked that word. We kicked around efficiency and innovation and did some word combining and came up with optimization as a word that includes both efficiency and innovation. I'll work through each of these throughout the slides, but this is just a visual giving you it all in one picture. Service priority, again, a visual. Service level agreements. What service level agreements are in someone who's completing work orders is what you say it should take you to do something. So let's say a printer connection. You would set a service level agreement on that. So you'd say, okay, if we get someone who submits connect this printer, we should be able to have that done in 1 day. Or if we have someone who says, we want a interactive board installed in our school, we say we should have that done in 1 week. And so as an organization, you set service level agreements. This is our agreement on the service level our stakeholders will receive. So our measure of progress, you're going to see measures of progress in each of these objectives, just like we have in Granite's strategic plan. Our measure of progress around our time to complete requests is 90% or more of work order system tickets will meet or exceed their service level agreement. So whatever we set as those service level agreement, we're saying we're going to aggregate that, and annually did we meet that at least 90% or more. The trick here, just being transparent, is we haven't set service level agreements for most of our repairs and our installs yet. This is something that we're still talking through, we're still looking at, we're still trying to find what we think is more than reasonable around times to complete requests. And so once we have those put together, then we can proceed with that measure. Communication and collaboration is our second objective in service priority, and what we've said our measures, here we have a couple. 90% or more of our meetings will have agendas, notes, and action items documented. Our second is 60% or higher response rate if it's a small group, and 400 or more of a sample size in large group in feedback loops. So what this is saying is we want to make sure we're getting enough stakeholder feedback to make good decisions. And did a little bit of research research into what percentage of a response rate when the group is small gives you an accurate measure, and what percentage if you have how many people, if you have a large group, does it take to have an accurate sense of what they're saying is valid. So these two measures are us trying to be more organized in our communication and collaboration, and then also in gaining feedback, making sure we have a good response rate. Our third objective is technology coaching. With the measure of progress, or 80% or more of teachers will indicate increased knowledge of digital applications and their alignment to instructional strategies. This is coming through educational technology, mostly, and through our digital teaching and learning grant. This measure is one we also use for our digital teaching and learning grant. Board President, I didn't know protocol-wise. Am I working through here or stopping for questions, or work through them all and then take questions?
I think if people have specific questions, we can take that, but otherwise we'll just hold off until the end.
Okay.
I did have a question actually on the technology coaching part.
Is it specific?
It's about the technology coaching. Do you, this is so loud. Do you have people evaluate the technology coaches at their school? Is there an end of the year evaluation process that happens there? And is that part of this technology coaching? Is that how are you getting the 80% of teachers?
Yep.
How are we doing that?
So Chris Larson for technology coaches, PG&E, he does their evaluation. This specific one is survey. We conduct a survey with all teachers in the district and ask them this question, or a series of questions to give us this percentage.
Is it specifically about the technology coach, or is it just technology in general?
That's a good point. The question is around their knowledge of digital. Has the support that they've received, it doesn't name the specific person, but I think it's pretty fair to assume that's my technology coach in my building. But to your point, the question is, do you feel like you've increased your knowledge in digital applications and their alignment to instructional strategies based on the support that you've received? Our method for that is truly the technology coach. I mean, you could make an argument the teacher next to me or my PLC helped me with that too. That's possible.
Hey, Rick, you indicated that we don't currently really have the service level agreements in place. I'm trying to figure out what this is. Who are the parties in a service level agreement?
Yep. So the stakeholders. So I'll give you an example of ones that we do have in place and we're tweaking, and that's in audiovisual. So if someone has an interactive board that's having problems, they would submit a work order for that. And on the back end, we've said, based on the problem that they've indicated here, we need to have, our agreement to that stakeholder is it would be repaired in 3 days. And so the clock's ticking in the work order system, because on the back end, we've said when this type of work order comes in, start the countdown timer.
So Granite School District is the person making the agreement with the stakeholder, and then Granite might, depending on, because there's always these third party people who we have to also rely on for a lot of this as well,
sometimes,
right?
Sometimes that's the case, yeah. So oftentimes, like an example is a interactive board install, oftentimes electrical needs to be moved, and so we're relying on an electrical shop for something like that. Not to get too into the weeds with the work order system, but because the clock's ticking on our end, what we might do is put that, if it's gone to another shop, put the ticket on hold, and so the timer stops until they've done their part, and then the timer restarts.
Okay.
So it's these kind of the technical piece that it gets a little bit tricky, and what's reasonable and what's fair, paired with what's a good stretch goal for us to be able to get the work done.
Thanks.
And it's one of those things that I think is always moving. We might set a goal on a service level agreement for certain things in 1 year, and then over time we're like, we did not meet that service level agreement ever. Maybe we set that goal a little too high. That's what's reasonable in talking through those. That's kind of the living, why these strategic plans are always living documents, is because you're always moving based on the results that you're getting. And not in the way that, hey, we need to lower the bar, we need to lower the bar, we need to lower the bar, but we need to be thoughtful about what's reasonable. So a couple of the actions we've found under each of these. So you've got your priorities, then you've got your objectives. This objective of a service level agreements has a couple of actions, and this is where the rubber hits the road per se. These are the things that you are doing. So when I say these aren't complete, it's we still have to define and understand service level agreements and establish performance monitoring and feedback for those service level agreements. We're farther along in some departments. For example, audiovisual is farther along than say security systems are. In the objective of communication and collaboration, we have 4 actions that we've named: information technology leadership team meeting. These are all things that we do to improve communication and collaboration. So we have a IT leadership team meeting, our technology steering committee, our shared communication and collaboration platform, and stakeholder communication during disruptions and outages. So these are all actions we've said to make sure we're meeting the objective of communication and collaboration. And the third objective under this priority is technology coaching, and we have technology coaching of teachers, technology coaching of non-district staff, and help desks. So when we look at our groups who are working with people, teaching people, these are our 3 big groups. Our technology coaches out in schools probably is definitely the largest group. After that, we have information systems facilitators who work with a lot of secretarial and non-teaching staff around applications they're using, whether that's the SIS or our ERP, just our different platforms that are used for air quotes, business purposes. And then we have a small help desk team of just 2 members here. Switching to the access priority, again, just the visual pointing out those 3 objectives of connectivity, security, hardware, software. Our measures around connectivity is Granite's wireless network will be operational at each location 99% of the time. This is a little bit misleading because, well, this is where we split this. I could have just given you that, but what happens sometimes is your wireless might be up, but the application's not working. And so you know, you can game it and say, yeah, our wireless was up 99% of the time, but the user experience might not feel like 99% of the time because it's the application that they're trying to use. And so what we tried to do to separate those 2 is we went to software to name some measures. So our wireless up 99% of the time, and paired with saturation of access points to include one-to-one in teacher areas. So our wireless might be up 99% of the time, but it might be very slow. And so what we did to try and make sure that we're on top of that is saturation of access points. Because slowness for us is something that's really difficult to measure. It's a little bit of a qualitative feedback piece. We do have some metrics that watch that. We're just saying in our connectivity, we want to make sure we're turned on most of the time, 99% of the time. We don't have, and this is always watching which access points go down. So in Granite School District, we have 4,500 access points, and we know whether each one's up and running or not. And so our measure around this is how much of we want overall green lights up 99% of the time. Saturation, again, we are in Granite. We have, at that 4,500, we have reached a saturation where we're one-to-one in teacher areas. Physical and cybersecurity, our measures of progress around that are alarm and camera security will be operational district-wide 99% of the time, real similar to that wireless measure. Measures of progress, 99.5% of employees will correctly identify cyber threats. This is something that we have not put into place in Granite and something that is on our checklist from our incident last year, and that is often what many what many businesses will do is they will do a teaching campaign, and they will, for lack of a better way of saying it, try and catch employees making a bad decision around clicking. So they will put together a fake phishing attempt and do it internally, and then any employees that click on that will be asked to review the reminders around what not to do. That's something that we're pulling together and plan to roll out this year, and so this is where this measure is coming from. It's just an education campaign, and you want to be careful around it where you're not off-putting to employees or you feel like the police are after me kind of thing, but you're coming at it from a, hey, we're not going to let you know, and we're going to, this is something that's, you need to remember, these are always coming through. Third measure there is fewer high severity incidents year over year, and so we are in the process of defining what a high severity incident is exactly. We know that we have a range, a realm of what we think high severity is, but we need to put a real good definition on what that is. This is things like major outages, major slowness in our connectivity. We have had one of those this year. We 2-3 weeks ago, we were hit with several things at the same time that were slowing people down, both from a wireless standpoint, but also an application standpoint. And interestingly enough, they weren't necessarily related. It was kind of bad luck to have several things having problems at the same time. Hardware and software is our third objectives, and in there our measures of progress are the number of tickets associated with disruption of digital tools will decrease yearly. Approved hardware and software lists will be up to date quarterly. I want to spend a minute on this, and this is where we're trying to separate, the wireless is on versus the wireless is slow, or the wireless is fine, but the application is having problems in being slow. And our only measure of applications that we landed on were tickets associated. So if someone's having a problem like, man, Focus is really running slow for me, submit a ticket. And so the ticket system helps us really quantify how many tickets did we have for Focus slowness this year. And we're looking to make sure that that's whatever number that was is less than next year.
I have a question, Rick. So is this like day to day? So if a teacher's like, it's a little bit slow all the time, or whatever, you want them to put a ticket in every single time, or until it gets resolved so that you can say, or until they get a reply? Do you know what I mean? Because I think some areas of some schools, it seems like it's slow all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they have anything to compare it to, or how often they need to put in a ticket.
Yeah, what you're naming is something that we're talking through. Again, our challenge is, how do we have a quantifiable number that measures disruption of digital tools? But the problem I would name with our solution is you're kind of hit or miss if people say, hey, I'm having an issue or not. Meaning they might feel like, someone else is going to say this is slow, or I know someone did here, or I'm always used to this. Trying to define, you're relying on individuals to submit tickets to have that number. I think that's mitigated a little bit on a really large aggregate level, where we say, okay, aggregate on the year, Focus tickets submitted for disruption of service was this, and hopefully that mitigates the people who always submit right away and the people who never submit. So we're trying to use big aggregate numbers to feel good about the overall, is it going down year to year?
I think in conjunction with that, like, I'm just thinking about my own behavior. I would try myself to work around it all in any way that I could until I was absolutely prohibited, and then I'd do a ticket.
Uh-huh.
And-
Yes, that's,
and I think our teachers are like that too.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that you guys are working hard to make sure those tickets are very easy to deal with and that they can build confidence in the fact that if they fill this out, they are going to be contacted.
Yeah.
And it's going to get worked out. Because I think the more they have that experience, and Rick, I know you're very good at customer service, so I'm sure that is happening. But I think that's a really important part of that tickets thing. I just wanted to ask you, did you say on the connectivity and the saturation of access points that you are at the one-to-one in teachers area already?
yeah.
Okay.
You may, by look on your face, you might be thinking, I've been in this room and
I
I
know
haven't
some-
seen an access point in there.
Yeah.
There may be some exceptions, maybe your newer buildings or if classrooms changed. But at 4,500 access points, in talking to, and I haven't gone out and visually mapped it, but in talking to our networking supervisor on this saturation, asking him, do you think we're at this? And he says yes, which means we're probably really close.
So if a teacher at this point feels like they do not have access, then that's because we don't know.
If they feel like the wireless in their room is slow, saturation is one way to help solve that, but it could be other problems
Right, it could
too.
be their hardware. it
The
could be
radio that's right next to
all
them,
kinds
yeah,
of things, yeah.
yeah. Last one, oh, sorry. Last one there is approved hardware and software lists. This is becoming, executive leadership team has heard me whining about this for weeks and weeks on what we're talking through, and this is becoming more and more of something that information technology is having to navigate as teachers' supplemental materials are becoming digital. So, back when I was a teacher, all my supplemental materials were analog. They were, different paper-based things that I would use, that I would pick up and use in my classroom. And probably most of us experienced that when we were in school. Now, an ever-increasing amount of teacher supplemental materials are software types of items that are delivered digitally, whether through the device in the room or whether through the LMS as well. And so we're seeing an increased amount of supplemental materials that teachers need support in, or that need to have data privacy agreements in place, or that need to make sure there's no sensitive material issues. And so we're working through navigating those lists and transparency around what's used, et cetera. A lot of which direction is given us through state statute and USBE rule. But it's becoming a more and more part of what traditionally maybe wasn't as transparent or known, but is now because it's digital. So we want to make sure we're on top of that. That measure of progress around software is making sure we are keeping our lists and doing our due diligence on vetting what comes across our desks. Here's, I just jump into the actions around connectivity, our wireless, our data center strategy, our monitoring and reporting strategy, our change management strategy. And these actions, I don't know if the board will remember, but I was talking to Stacy earlier today. We had a third party do a pretty comprehensive review of technology in Granite and come back with a lot of recommendations for us probably 3 to 4 years ago. And so some of these actions here are things that we learned from that review and are continuing with those. Actions around our physical and cyber security, and I separate these because we have a lot of physical security that's IT related in Granite. Key card access, for examples, cameras. We have around 4,500 cameras in Granite School District as well. 4,500 wireless radios, but also around 4,500 cameras in Granite School District also, all connected to the internet. So security systems is the department that handles cameras and our key card access. Network network security is a different thing. So we purposely picked cybersecurity because that resonates with people. They kind of understand what that is. Data privacy and data governance program, our risk management, security, information and event management, making sure that we have all of those things in place. Our third action, hardware and software, we have our approved hardware and software processes, our metadata dictionary, our inventory and asset management as well. Moving to the third priority, 2/3 of the way there, folks. I'm going through. This is one where my measures of progress are in orange because we're really still talking through what measures of progress would work for these. This is where I've now run up against where I led with, hey, please understand this is a living document. We're still working through it, getting feedback. So within our resource management objective, we're playing around with budget cost per user and what would be a good measure around that. 90% or more of information technology resources allocated will align to strategic goals, making sure your money is aligning to your strategy. 90% of technology infrastructure will be within industry life cycle standards. Again, resource management. This third one for us, and I won't belabor it, but this third one for us is a challenge where we're just seeing we haven't really set aside budget to be able to change out hardware within its industry standard life cycle. I mean, the board's very, very aware that budget's always a challenge, and prioritization around budget, facilities, operations, et cetera, is as well. Within continuous improvement objective, we're playing around with a number of initiatives delivered as planned, and how do you measure delivered as planned? We're still talking through some of that. 90% of resources are aligned to strategic goals. Here you're seeing a repeat of the same measure, but we felt that fit both continuous improvement and resource management. You see that in Granite's strategic plan as well around talent development, within the talent development priority, just measures across a couple of different objectives. And then third, trying to figure out a number of new tools, technologies that were implemented successfully. Again, how do we measure implemented successfully, and what is implemented successfully? We're having those conversations. Last is learning development priority. 95% of employees complete their evaluation process yearly. 95% of employees have earned the required certifications for position. In information technology, there's certain positions that have required certifications. And we have within our hiring, you might not have that certification, but you have your provisional first 3 years to gain that certification. And so we have a certification program within information technology, not every position, but probably at least 60% of the positions have these certifications. And then third, we're playing with just a pipeline type of thing, X number of qualified candidates for every open position, and talking through feeling like that's a good measure of progress on a learning and development objective. Actions around resource management, enhanced asset lifecycle, our E-rate optimization. E-rate is a federal reimbursement program that if you use monies for certain things, you get reimbursed at a fairly heavy discount on that. And so you always want to we have a person dedicated to always watching that and working with purchasing to make sure we're saving money in how we're purchasing technology through this federal program. Infrastructure upgrades and funding model, documented standard operating procedures are all things that we feel are good actions for our resource management. In continuous improvement, we're focused on digital transformation, exploring new technologies and reviewing legacy systems, automating processes, our data management and analytics as well. And then last, in learning and development, our evaluation cycle, our certification program, and our succession planning through talent development pipeline. or actions were taken in that objective.
Hey, Rick,
Yes.
do we, it's clear here that we keep people licensed and keep their knowledge up. Do we send them also to conferences to understand what new technology there is out there and how to utilize it to enhance achievement?
Yep, so each area, from developers to network engineers to audiovisual, have both local and national opportunities. We have a budget that we can't just send everyone all the time everywhere, but we're pretty strategic in making sure that the people that might have something new coming their way have some opportunities for that, or someone who's taking the initiative and wants to gain better understanding brings it to their supervisors. So we do have budget set aside for travel, if you will, and conferences. And that's honestly been, that budget amount's been adequate for our needs.
And I also noticed that you have somewhere in there you talked about, let's see, stay here, and continuous improvement, things implemented, initiatives delivered. Wait, there's one that was about innovation, but somewhere I think I would feel like it would fit under the continuous improvement. I just wanted to add a suggestion that it's good for us to make sure that we're constantly efficient, and that every year we're also saying what is no longer relevant or what's no longer serving us, and that we're getting rid of those things on a consistent basis. Because I just think that this is such a huge thing to bite off. So if we can keep that, I think it's really
Tell me if you
helpful.
think this second action fits
reviewing
that.
legacy
Exploring
systems.
new technologies and reviewing legacy
Yeah,
systems.
that's it. Excuse me, I didn't notice that. I'm glad you put that. Thank you.
Yep.
Who, in connection with that though, who's the one in charge of that?
Me. So where a
you're
lot of
doing
these,
that?
yeah, where a lot of these things will hit, I'll give you, what's a good recent example? Okay, on the network side, a lot of new technologies are cloud-based rather than data center on-prem or on-premises types of solutions. And so our most recent exploration, we have a digital file storage program called FileBound. And that's an on-prem on our servers solution currently. And so we've explored moving that to cloud where it's not on here on our servers. And it comes at a price. You pay annual licenses for cloud-based storage. But you also pay for the hardware, et cetera, on premises. And most of the time, not always, most of the time it pencils out to move to the cloud. So that's an example. We have not chosen to move to the cloud with FileBound, and some of that is just budget related. But it's always exploring like what's going to be the better solution. That's an example. I think our change from student information system of discovery to focus school software was probably one of the heaviest lifts that information technology can make around switching to a different technology.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Before I ask mine.
I just have a quick one. It's not entirely related to this, but still looking for some kind of discussion or plan on our technology strategy in the classroom. Is that coming down the road separate to this?
Elaborate a little bit for me.
So just, a study session, which I believe we've talked about a couple of times about, and in our law and policy meetings, about having some kind of more in-depth discussion about our technology strategy in the classroom specifically with Chromebooks and other technology tools.
This kind of goes back to our statement that we're talking about use of technology.
Okay, so kind of, whoa, 3 mics. So,
Rick, if I can chime in before you answer.
Yep.
To me, that is something that perhaps you would be collaborating on with curriculum.
Yeah.
I think that's what the real question is not necessarily how's it all working and what do we have and is it, but like, how is it pedagogically for our kids?
And I think maybe the bridge there is in information technology where we have ed tech, educational technology. Chris Larson's the director. I supervise Chris. That grouping is living and breathing that the most. The pedagogical, I'll call it, the pedagogical and curricular use of digital tools would be something that he could speak to. I could speak to it too, to a degree, but that realm is really where he would shine.
So maybe it's a study session about curriculum and the balance between online curriculum versus
Or best practices with technology.
what our best practices are, what we're encouraging. I know we had, at the District Community Council, you shared some interesting data about at least what you found as far as how much time kids are on their Chromebooks during the day. And I believe I won what the estimate was.
It was less than you would have thought, but I get where you're going. Maybe it's an element of that presentation. You know, that was speaking to amount of time, usage, filtering, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's an element of that. Maybe it's instructional strategies, best instructional strategies with digital materials. Maybe it's even this, what I mentioned earlier, this change that we're seeing from analog to digital around teacher supplemental materials as well. Certainly could do a presentation on all of those.
And may I add, as long as we're defining potential elements of what that might look like, I hope that AI is a significantly addressed element of that as well.
Yeah, that a real short on that, just I guess maybe a teaser or a preview is certainly very, very powerful and a huge deal right now, and its potential around learning is tremendous. But there's a lot of questions around student data privacy in AI and sensitive materials in AI. Currently in Granite, we have School AI, which is a state-approved software that we use. Outside of that, we block a lot of AI tools.
I don't, you can tell me if you disagree, Kim, but I wanted to just share what discussions Kim and I have had. Things like, we're both like, well, do we really want kids learning math online, or do we want them to have a printed book? Or reading novels or reading short stories on the computer? These are the kinds of discussions we want to have. Is what data is there around which things are most effective? Because we're also seeing data that shows that the printed thing is more effective than the technology. So we're having these kinds of questions and would like clarity and understanding of both where we are, where we're headed, and why. Okay.
Yes, and I agree. And just to clarify, so I'm not saying it should have been tonight or anything. I just didn't know if that was already in the works, and I was looking for an update on that. So it sounds like we still need to put it together.
Yeah, and it would probably be a collaborative presentation with Leslie because of the curriculum and instruction element. And I don't want to diminish educational technology's involvement in coaching and instruction. But when we look at our technology coaches, they essentially have three different roles. They are our first line of defense around tickets, around my printer doesn't work. That individual is our first line of defense there. They also help tremendously with student assessment and oftentimes act as the facilitator of assessments that are happening in the school. And then third, they're coaching teachers on technology use and best instruction around that. So I don't want to diminish that they're not involved in that, but curriculum and instruction would definitely be partners in that kind of a discussion or sharing our current data and thinking.
I think it would be good to have some teachers who effectively use it even in their classroom. I was just showing Chris School AI and some of the things that I've done on it, and I haven't done a lot, but for me as a teacher, it's a huge time saver. It's not anything that I can write the lesson plans, but man, if I can just throw that into School AI and have it printed out for me, or the worksheet or whatever it is, it's so nice.
Yeah, there's a real productivity element to AI now. I wanted, before when I said to Clark that we block AI on the student level, we have it open for employees. AI, so like ChatGPT, et cetera, employees can use it.
Yeah. So school AI, at least to me, is very, write an email, things like that, it helps so much.
It's amazing if you played with any of it. It's wild how much it can do.
I think a lot of the concern is around what are kids doing with it? Like what access do they have? So like make sure that, I want you to understand that we're looking at this as like, yeah, give teachers whatever tools they want. What
Yeah.
are we giving kids? That's where the concern is.
Yeah, and the short is, we do give teachers whatever they want, but students are limited to school AI, at least on our Granite devices, et cetera.
Yeah, and I want to be clear too that we need to think about that in both directions. Like, I think there needs to be significant cautions about what we allow students to do, but I also think we need to be very cognizant of what AI is and what a tool it will be in all of our futures, especially those of the coming generation. So I think we need to be very deliberate and cognizant of what kind of a tool it can and should be for our students.
I had a student tell me that she had maxed out her ChatGPT. I didn't know that there was that thing, that was a thing. You can max out how many questions
Now
you
you
can
need to
ask.
pay, kind of thing.
You got to pay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She needs
yeah,
to
on the
start
free
paying.
version, but I'm like, why? You asked that many? And she's like, yeah, I use it kind of instead of Google. But, so our
Yeah.
students are using it, period, whether we want them to or not. So I think giving them the tool and then saying, this is the effective way, or showing them, hey, you know what, it's not infallible. Look at, let's evaluate what ChatGPT said or what School AI said. Is this correct? What would you change here? Or is this, and I think it's a very valuable tool to use because it is something that is part of our future. So anyway, this is my side. That's my side note.
Well, and I'm not meaning to come in here with an agenda or a debate going on. I mean, in my own company, we now have questions in our every single interview about your understanding of how to utilize AI and how effective you are at utilizing it, because it's going to impact your productivity. So I understand the need for this. I'm looking at age appropriateness. I'm looking for data, best practices, things like this. I want to make sure we're intentional and not just riding a wave that actually could crash and burn, right? I also just wanted to say, Rick, we appreciate your department so much. We know that this entire district would come to a halt without the really good people working so hard in your department. And I know they sit in that corner and no one sees them, and they don't get a lot of recognition.
Some of us kind of like that. You kind of like that.
And-
There's some upside to that.
Well, tell them that whether they like it or not, we see them, we appreciate them. We know what they are doing behind the scenes. And I also just wanted to take a minute to recognize our teachers, because as a former teacher, I know how hard it is to lose control of your ability to choose whatever you need in order to teach.
Right.
And in this globalization, we have lost some of that autonomy as teachers. And it is painful, and I just wanted to recognize that, because yes, I no longer can just take any tool and throw it in my classroom, because now there are all these things. There's data privacy, there's, like who's looking at this, and what else could be filtering through to this child, and what else could they be doing that's off task, and there are so many things. So we have lost some autonomy as teachers, and I just want to recognize that, because I think it is hard on teachers to lose that autonomy over the supplemental materials. I also just wanted to say, to our board, I really would love to see an annual report of the outcomes. Now that we have a plan, I'd love to see an annual report of how are we doing on this plan? What are we doing to address the areas of weakness? How can we support with that? How can we celebrate the things that are working? Stuff like that. And so I don't know, I see that you still have some things to finish up in
Yep.
this plan.
Yep.
But I think that it would be really helpful for the board to be a part of that living document annually.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because I think that report out is a great accountability tool, but it's what makes this process real and not just going up on a shelf. And the one thing I would ask is what you'll see this in Granite's strategic plan is what if it's a living document and you're truly looking at these measures and you're truly adjusting, you are making some adjustments, right? So there might be some variance where we sit in front of the board and say, hey, we had this measure of this and we didn't get it. But we dove into this and this is why, and this is why, and this is where we're at. And I think that's a very real and powerful thing when you bought into continuous improvement.
Well, and I think that it's very important that we have honesty going on in our district with each other, that we're not trying to impress each other, we're not trying to make it look good, we're having real conversations and helping each other, and that you and anyone else doesn't feel worried about showing up here with results that are less than,
Than what you said.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
The goal is to get this board on board with helping with that area that needs more support and more progress. And so we would hope that anyone who comes here would feel comfortable, even in a public meeting, saying the things that we need to work on, because I think it builds confidence among all of us that we're on the same team.
Yeah, agreed.
Any other comments? I just had a question. I know this is, sorry if it's beating a dead horse. Going back to how the coaches are evaluated, I guess the reason why I ask about it is because it seems like some of our tech coaches are not former teachers. Is that correct? Or are all of them former teachers?
Well, I would say all of them are former teachers
Are
on a
they?
teaching. They all have a teaching certificate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that we have some really excellent ones and some that maybe are not quite as effective. And so just in my questioning, how are they evaluated? Or how is that one, I have to go back to it, that
Yeah.
one point evaluated?
Yep. I can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see that maybe we do include, a teacher evaluation of the tech coaches, because if they're not being effective, then that might be a strategy that we can leverage in there, because it's true, the teachers can improve their technology knowledge, but by no help of, or very
Sure.
little help from
It
what's
could have been their
happening with the tech
PLC,
coach.
et
So,
cetera,
anyway.
yeah. Just quickly speaking to that, and again, through realities and transparency, this is one that's a little bit challenging in that when you evaluate a teacher, you're evaluating them on the teacher standards, which really lend themselves to classroom instruction. And so one thing that helps with this with technology coaches just this year is we have coaching standards. And so technology coaches shifting from those very classroom-oriented specific standards to instructional coaching standards as part of their evaluation, I think is a real big improvement. A reality in our challenge is Chris Larson, the director here, supervises and conducts those evaluations. But they're working, in the case of an elementary technology coach, they're working with two different principals. Day to day, they're splitting two schools. And so he's collaborating, the three of you are sitting down and collaborating around what that evaluation should look like as well, which could be actually a good thing, but sometimes might not as well, because it's not necessarily getting to the root of some certain things. These are specific challenges of the unique position that we're very cognizant of and always trying to do a better job with. I'm going to toot Chris's horn here in his work and efforts around instructional coaching standards that just better align with their day-to-day work than the classroom side.
That's good to hear. I'm glad that we're making that shift, because I think it is important to focus in on what they need to be doing or what they should be doing, and if they're being effective in that realm. So
Right.
I appreciate that. Okay. No other questions? Thank you
Thank you.
so much for being here, and we're going to invite up almost Dr. Jared Reynolds.
was almost one time. It's not good to be almost. But thank you for pointing that out. I think it's a good one. Appreciate that.
Just use the down arrow.
Okay. Hi, I'm almost Dr. Jared Reynolds. I don't think I've presented before the board before, so if I mess up, I'm sorry. Just help me. You can just tell me what I'm doing wrong. So I was asked to present on a new program we have. I am, I guess I should have said also, I'm Director of Student Services and Prevention. And last spring, we did a pilot program. We didn't have a name for it yet. We just called it our transition classroom, but it was helpful. I'm gonna go over some of the things, the reasons why. And so we requested some funding to staff it long-term. And now we have a name for it also. We're calling it North Point Center. We'll get into that name a little bit, but it's a transition classroom for students who are trying to figure out where the best place for them to go to school is.
Jared, I'm gonna interrupt real
Yes.
quick just to give a little more.
You're gonna call it Safe School Light, huh?
Well, now I am. I had a couple of board members reach out and say, what is this North Point Center and what is this
Okay.
presentation? So just to give a little bit more comprehensive background in our budget approvals and our proposal, we talked about, we kind of have a niche need here where we have students who are habitually disruptive is the nicest way to say that, where they're not engaging in class, they're not, they may have attendance issues, but they're on campus and they're creating a disruption and oftentimes can be influencing others to not participate in their education and take advantage of the privilege that they have to be in our schools. And so the idea and the concept is these aren't violent offenders. They don't qualify for our Safe School program because they've not technically violated to the degree those policies. But at the same time, the interventions that we're providing at the school level are not as effective as we need them to be. And our schools are crying out for help, and our administrators are spending a tremendous amount of time with a small amount of population. And sometimes they're not getting the support and help that they need from parents to be able to address these behaviors. So we started talking last year about what would a Safe School Light look like, a light version of Safe School where unfortunately you've lost the privilege to be able to attend your school at the local level. Is there a way that we can remediate that, redirect you, change your focus, help get you back on track? Is that at another location or possibly just pulling you out of your current location for a time being until you decide that that's something you'd like to do and you recognize that school is in fact a privilege, and then we can get you back into your traditional location. And a big part of this, as he's going to explain, is working with parents and families to kind of address these behaviors. The idea is that we don't have enough resources out at our schools to be able to handle all these types of situations, but we can provide that additional support at the district level. So yes, that's where the term Safe School Light comes from, and hopefully that sets you up a little bit. I did want to also excuse Leslie tonight. She's actually out of town attending a legislative CTE task force meeting and representing the district on that. It was last minute, otherwise she'd be here to help present with Jared. So go ahead, Jared.
Thank you, Superintendent. And I'd say too, also as a principal, I love it when a student, if they got in trouble, had to go to Safe School, when they came back and were successful in school, I love it when a student can re-engage in school. Obviously our goal is that every student, if they could graduate from a regular high school, I think it's so much better for them and for us as a community, as society. So we really want to re-engage students back in the academic process and help them get back to regular school. But we do have a lot of students who are struggling in school and for one reason or another shouldn't be right now at school. But that's our main goals. Our department, as I said, are there to promote safe, supportive, and orderly school environment for students through strategic intervention and placement. And I'll explain how North Point Center helps with that. Just an overview or a review of all the alternative placement programs we have in our department. We oversee Connection High, our alternative high school, Granite Peaks Adult Ed. Now North Point Center, Roosevelt Continuation School is our Safe School. when students have violated safe school policies. Turning Point is our elementary classroom for safe school for elementary students who have violated the safe school policy. And then we have our program, the YES program, which oversees and supports all students who are in state custody, state care, which we actually have a lot who are in regular schools, but just getting support. With our programs, I wanted to highlight that one thing I think is interesting or good is we really are seen as a model district. I'm asked often to present on what we're doing to help students who are struggling. Schools are having a hard time on deciding what to do with students who are disrupting classroom or are violating safe school policies. They don't have options for students. Just today I was in a meeting where another school was, another district was talking to the judges and some other people about they need more help. But I think we have been pretty successful at trying to intervene and to help. These are just a list of some places I've been asked to present on what we're doing in Granite School District to help schools be more safe. And what I always focus on in those presentations and what as a department we are, is we want to make sure we have enough options for students. What options do we have when they can't engage in school? And every student is, there's a different reason. So to have a continuum of services helps a lot. And we really try to give good support. So we look at every student who comes to any one of our programs, and we look at what they need and what interventions and helps we can give. And I highlight especially our Check and Connect mentor program has been phenomenal for helping support the students who are struggling. And then we're really trying, in this third point, we're doing a lot better this last year, starting last school year. And this one is where we're engaging a lot more with other stakeholders, with probation, with the courts, with Salt Lake County, and with the juvenile defense attorneys to try to use their resources and what they have and to bring those things together. But we have had a gap or need for the student who Superintendent Horsey pointed out, the students who are struggling in school, just be suspended over and over and over, but not a safe school violation, or students who are not engaged, they maybe have gotten in trouble in the community, they haven't gotten in trouble at school, they've gotten arrested for something, and we get notified of that, and we're deciding where should they go to school, what kind of plan can we put in place before they go back to their regular school or to another school. And so we needed kind of like a temporary classroom where we can really find out more about the student, what are their needs, put interventions in place, and then help them transition to a regular classroom or a regular school as quick as possible.
Hey, Jared?
So, yes.
Can you go back a slide? Can you just remind me where Turning Point is located?
Turning
and
Point is
where
in
Yes is?
Yeah, Turning Point is in Lincoln Elementary.
Oh, it's in Lincoln.
It's kind of a
Okay.
back hallway that is not used for anything else. It's
Okay.
a large classroom.
And
So
Yes?
Yes is all over. So yes, we actually have
We have
over,
like several locations
Yeah.
for it, right?
we have
It's okay.
about 1,500 students in our district who are in state care. So most of them are actually in schools. Most of them are in state care because of DCFS. They've been pulled out of their home because of parents. But we do have a lot who've been pulled out of the home because of their own criminal acts. But most of them are in schools just with support. But we have to monitor them. So we get state funding to help them be successful in school. So if they're not being successful in a regular classroom or they have had a hard time at home, whatever's going on in their life, we have transition classrooms. And we have at Granger High, at Connection High, at Roosevelt we have a transition classroom. And then we have mentors who go to any school and work with them.
Okay, thanks.
So the North Point Center, our goal was to have a place where we can provide tools and resources for those students who aren't being successful so they can return to the least restrictive environment as soon as possible. We hope that, like Safe School, when they're out for a while at Safe School, they actually go back to their boundary school if we give them support and interventions and they've been out and working with the school, if we can have them go back at the next school year to their boundary school, that's an option, but more likely, it's another regular school. It could be the sister school and their feeder pattern if it's a junior high. If it's a high school, it could be another high school. Or if we can't have them go back to a regular school or it's not working, then we'll use one of our alternative settings. But we do really want to try to get students back to regular school. In this program, we're really being goal-focused with why are they here, why are they being successful in school, and try to get some quick wins or some small wins to help to re-engage them in the learning. We also were trying to pull together all of the extra supports that we know about throughout the county, the state. There are a lot of services that people don't take advantage of, I think, other schools. And so in this place, we have a coordinator who really knows those programs and works great with parents and students. So we're trying to give them that extra support and then continue it wherever they go to school. In this program, we really want it to be a win-win. Obviously, if a student is struggling in school, especially behaviorally, the whole school is suffering also. Other students, parents complain about students in their class. But for that student as well, if you're not being successful in school, you're struggling as well. So removing a student from school, if they're struggling, isn't just giving the school a break and the parents who are complaining or concerned about this behavior, but it really can help that student to reset, to get the help they need, and then to re-engage in back in the school if possible or into another school. So we really want it to be a win-win scenario. And this is really just a transition period. This North Point Center, it's not necessarily a consequence of a safe school violation. It does feel less punitive. There's a lot of things we put in place, so it feels like this is just a reset and it's not a consequence. Even though it is a consequence of things they've done, but it really does feel like a reset. And I'll go over some of the things we have in place that make it feel like that. First of all, the location. We are really, really fortunate in where it's at. We looked at a lot of different places, some elementary schools that had closed, a few secondary buildings the district owns, a place in other schools. But we discovered, I didn't know this was there, but there's a fourplex here at the GEC that the district owns. It was a daycare, but only being used the last year for some training a few times a month. And it's right behind, it's right north of the print shop. So it's on the north side of the campus. That's not why we called it the North Point Center, but it really works. So it's on the north side of the campus. A few things about that that's really good is we looked at other locations like elementary schools that had closed. We were worried about a few people in a small, or without a lot of other people around. The students, the teachers would feel isolated. So it's better for staff and students. They are right here at a busy place. The transportation is great. We already have built-in transportation. We have GTI buses that come from every high school. So we worked with GTI and transportation. And so the students, when they come here, even if it's a junior high student, they go to their local high school, they get on the GTI bus and they come here. Because the GTI bus has 2 sessions, we can have a student here all day long, or we can have them here in the morning or the afternoon. Also, because it's here, we worked with the GEC Cafe, and if they are here all day, we can provide them lunch. So there were some things that we were worried about in other locations that being here at the campus made it so easy. And then they're close to administration, our offices here, and then other support services. We have some experts, like our counselor, the lead over counselor, Danny Natter, she's here on campus. The person, Sherry Sanchez, over social workers. So we've already tapped into some of their resources to help here. We have our teachers gone over and talked to the GTI principal, Mandy Chappell, and talked about how we can do some things with the GTI as well to help the students while they're over there. Try to engage in the education process. Try to, when they leave here, have some goals on what they're going to accomplish with school. Because oftentimes when they come to us, they are floundering a little bit with what the purpose of school is. So the location's been awesome. We're thrilled to have it there. So Superintendent Horsey talked about the habitually disruptive student. That actually is in state code. It defines a student who is suspended multiple times as being habitually disruptive. So we use that phrase for this memo, but Administrative Memo 146 lays out, and that was put in place last January. But it lays out that a student who is habitually disruptive, there's a process that we're going to go through to make sure they don't continue to be disruptive in the school. Part of that process is we'll go out in our department, we'll meet with the parent, the student, the administration, go over all of the suspensions, all the concerns of the school, which hopefully the parents know about, but some that we did last year. The parent, it was a surprise. I don't think they realized how exhausting the student had been. And so we signed a contract. It's called a student conduct agreement, or kind of a quick thing that I remember as just a last chance contract. But it really, it lays out, and the parent and the student signs that if this behavior continues and the student is suspended again, they'll be suspended to student services, and we'll look for an alternative placement. And so we put this memo in place before, or this memo was put in place before we actually had the North Point Center there. And so this was part of the need for the North Point Center, was a place where we could have the students go until that semester ends or until the school year ends. We can start fresh for the student at wherever they're going to go next. Because for a secondary student, if they get removed in the middle of a quarter, it's hard to start at a new school and be successful in the middle of a quarter. But a semester, all the classes are changing, even year-long classes. There's new students that come in and out. And so you don't seem like you're new. And so a student who has some goals to re-engage, I think, can come in and be more successful at a semester or at the end of the school year, or possibly at the end of a quarter, especially for high school students. And so in that memo, it talks about the process we'll go through and then what the goal is of those students. Last year, again, the memo went into place in January. We didn't start North Point Center until fourth quarter, but we had 19 referrals from schools. We had 4 of those students who were immediately placed into an alternative setting. And I thought actually that'd be more common. I think it will be as this continues, but from a high school student who's maybe a junior or senior, low in credit, struggling to go to school, they're referred to us because they're at school, but they're never in class. They're wandering halls, or they're in the parking lot, a group of students, but oftentimes there's one that's causing the problem. The principal's really concerned about, like, this is a safety concern to us because they're not in school and they're just here, and there's some aggravating circumstances that we've been concerned about. There might be some gang involvement, we're not sure, but there's some things that have concerned us. So the same thing, we went in, we met with the family. The student had already been suspended for not being in, for blatantly not being in class. And for most of the high school ones, 4 of the 6 that were high school referrals, the parent wanted something else right away. They know their student wasn't engaging, and so we had options, and so we didn't even sign that conduct agreement. For the others that we signed the conduct agreement for, and hopefully this number won't keep going, but our goal from that agreement is that if a student realizes, and we think that maybe it's because this hadn't happened before, but as people realize, as the students hear about, because they do hear about programs that are happening, that if you have this contract and you do violate it, you will be removed and moved to another school. But out of those who signed the contract, 10 of them broke the contract, and we brought them to our classroom. And a few of them we started into another school. We didn't have that North Point going fourth quarter, but some of them who were during the third quarter, we had them with us at Roosevelt until the quarter ended. They went to another school, and then at the start of this school year, almost all of them, we started this school year out at another school or back to their boundary school with a contract. And so far, out of all the ones that were with us, the 10, all of them are doing fine at the school they're at. I I shouldn't say that. I don't know if they're doing fine. They're still there. They are. We follow up with them. It's been great. The coordinator has talked to the administration. There are 2 that are struggling, and we're hoping they'll make it throughout this first quarter and be able to continue. The principals.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
I
Please
just
do.
want to make sure, I'm just a little confused, so I just need to ask a couple questions.
Yes.
So this program began when?
The memo that the habitually disruptive students, that we would remove a student from school if they continued, went into effect in January, the end of January. And I don't, Doug is here, I don't know the exact date, but
And
it
at
was the end
that
of January.
point, they went to North Point Academy? Or
We wanted an alternative place, but we had other things that we could do in the meantime. So North Point Center did not exist then. We were working to set it up, so we started that 4th quarter.
Of last year?
Yep. So we
Okay.
did have some that were removed, but most of those people we signed the contract with were not removed before 3rd quarter ended anyways.
Okay.
We
And
had
so-
one. We had one that we removed before the 3rd quarter ended, and the parents didn't want them to stay there, and they had been in safe school before. They weren't violating again, but we had them, they liked their teachers. We had them at Roosevelt until 4th quarter started. We moved them to another school for the rest of the year, and they actually were successful. But
I love so much how you are accounting for every single student.
well, you get to know them pretty
Yeah,
well.
I know. I'm also from the alternative world. I know. Okay, and referrals, 19. Is that 19 since the beginning of this year?
January.
Oh, since January of last year. We've had 19 kids a part of this program, even though
Yeah.
it kind of really didn't get going until March, April, right?
Yeah, we started working with it right away. We went out and met with the school. We first found out who the student was, looked up everything we could. We went and met with the school, met with the parent, and signed the contracts right away.
Okay.
We had a few schools within a few weeks that we already met with, and then we would monitor. Our coordinator was connecting with the schools and following up, and because we're hoping with that contract that it's not like 1 week later and they're suspended again and they're out. We're hoping that conduct agreement on almost everyone we've gone to, except the high school ones, the student really wants to stay in school. They feel like they're not being understood also. They think there's excuses or reasons why. Sometimes the parent doesn't think that the right things have happened, but that's what's nice about this meeting. Someone from the district comes, the parent understands pretty clear that it kind of feels like it's escalating. They're like, okay, the school is serious about this, and there's a few parents that weren't happy with how the administration was handling things, the suspensions, but regardless, it put everything out on the table. These are all the suspensions, these are all the behaviors. This is what, and our form goes over what the student has done to try to minimize what the parent has done and what the school, and then we set goals, like what will they do, and then they sign the contract. And so hopefully that contract will be in effect for a while and the behavior will increase. We had 5 that it did, that they made it the rest of the year. Hopefully that will go up. But we started right away. We didn't start seeing students removed until about the end of 3rd quarter, and then throughout the 4th quarter there were a few more suspensions, and then we went and met with them. It worked out kind of nice because we started this at the beginning of 3rd quarter. We really didn't start getting referrals until the beginning of 4th quarter. We didn't have the students with us that long in our transition classroom. It was like
So
4
that-
weeks at the most, so it was good.
That's my next question, and just, I mean, without going into any detail about it, because I think we can get myopic on all of these. 4 of them were placed immediately at a different school. 15 of them were on contract, and they met their contracts, so they went back to their school. 10, for this fall, they started at their new school, right? And 10 of them broke their contract, but they went back to their schools, and you already gave us a report on
Yeah.
those 10. Am I got this correct?
Absolutely. Most
Okay.
of those who, the majority of our students this last year were 8th graders. Out of those 10, 6 of them were 8th graders. Most of them,
Okay.
5 just went to their feeder high school, and we met with administration. 1, we had them go to a different high school. because of some other things. The 4 that were immediate place, 3 of the 4 actually we exempted, and they started adult ed. Their credits were low, the parents, we have, for high school kids, it's actually pretty easy. We have so many things available. If they're not engaging in school, it's just a matter of us meeting with them and finding out who they are. We have more help, and they've had a lot of help along the way. I feel bad, the hard ones, honestly, for us are the 7th and 8th graders, that I don't want them in an alternative setting so young, and that we're, for 6 years, trying to figure out what to do with them. So we're hoping that they're not here long and we can get them back to a regular school or their home school with success. Because if not, we already see it with the students who are safe schooled. There are more than I'd like to have students who, once they get to an alternative setting, they're not successful when they go back.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes it's because they just do good in small settings, and we realize that. And so we want somewhere where if a student's not being successful in regular school, they need a small setting. They keep getting in trouble when they go back. We're cognizant of that. We want to make sure we're helping them too, so they don't keep causing problems at school.
Great. Thank you, Jared.
So the other half too, that we didn't start out for this purpose when we started the North Point Center, but it has been very beneficial, and this is what a lot of districts also are struggling with, is what to do with students who they do reintegration meetings with. A reintegration meeting is a relatively new law. There's the state code that schools are notified when a juvenile is arrested, charged with, or adjudicated, but for the most part it's arrested for a serious offense. We're notified. And we have done, since that has happened, we've actually done really good, I think, as a district, that when we meet with the student, the family, the probation officer, caseworkers, that if they are not a good fit to go back to their school because of their charge, that we have options. We have probation officers in the meeting, as we lay out our options, will want to go to an alternative setting. We'll say, can they go to Roosevelt until they get off probation, until they prove themselves? And the parents will. Other districts really struggle with that to the extent that this last legislative session, a few school districts pushed through some legislation, or helped sponsors, had some legislature sponsor, that added that fourth bullet point, that schools now may remove a student if it's a forcible felony. So before, the law didn't say a school could remove, an LEA could remove a student. It was just to make a plan to return the student back to school. So we found out about this serious offense. We have a meeting to make a safety plan with an academic behavioral intervention for them to go back to their regular school. We actually, with a lot of ours, we weren't having them go back because we didn't think it was the right fit because of some safety reasons. Other districts didn't have options. So it highlights that I'm really grateful for the options we have. So
I want
now,
to clarify on that, if you don't mind, Jared.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you. While this reintegration piece is obviously for more serious safe school violations, it's applicable to this overall conversation about alternative placements and still providing services for kids and kind of meeting them where they're at. This, if you don't recall, the whole reintegration movement, and she reminded me, was stemmed from an incident in one of our high schools where somebody had been had shot off a gun in a parking lot area and caused a major lockdown in the middle of a lunchtime period. Come to find out, this individual was placed back by the state in one of our schools, and our school didn't feel like they had any choice or decision in that. So the whole concept behind the reintegration is a Granite District initiative that we worked with legislators to say, why are you pushing kids back that might be dangerous to the rest of our population, and requiring us to take those students when we have alternative options to be able to assist those kids. Now, think about it this way. There was a situation where a kid was suspected of a gang-involved murder and was walking around a hallway in one of the state schools, and the high school had no idea, right? And so reintegration has been a tremendous success on that front. As he's mentioned here, the third and fourth bullet are adding additional requirements for a reintegration before a kid can come back. If they're under investigation for any sort of criminal activity, the school gets to be notified, and we get to come up with a plan and intervention to make sure that placement is appropriate, and that we're providing safety and a plan to be able to reintegrate them back into a school environment until that investigation is complete. So to his point, now some of these kids, we are not allowing to go back into a traditional environment. We're sending them straight over to Roosevelt with our traditional safe school program. This is all due to things that have happened here in Granite School District that we felt very uncomfortable with in terms of safety for our general students. So just wanted to kind of update you on that.
So because of that, and now that it's a law, it's very likely we'll see those numbers over there go up, right? Or,
As far as the numbers at the North Point Center, you're saying, or the
no,
numbers,
the
these numbers?
reintegration meeting and all of that stuff, because has that been happening consistently
So
before?
yeah, so this law wouldn't affect our 2023, 2024 school year was the first year it was in effect. So we started receiving court notices at that point. And
You'll see those numbers go up just because we're at the start of the school year here. I anticipate we'll actually continue to see a rise and an increase. The difference is now we know who these kids are. We can provide appropriate supports and make sure the rest of our school population is safe as well.
yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about these students, and this school year includes all the ones during the summer as well. We continue to get them during the summer, the notices. I do a meeting every Friday with key people from our department where we go over all the new court notices I receive, and we talk about every student, like, is there any gang involvement? What was the charge? We're fortunate to have, because DT is in our district, that we have some personnel who they're being taught why they're in DT. So before they get out, we actually
Can you say what DT stands for? Sorry.
Oh, yes, detention. Actually, it's SLVD, Salt Lake Valley Detention Center. But so we
provide the Jared supervises the instruction that happens at Salt Lake Valley Detention. So we do have kids who may not have been our students, but they become our students because they're located and detained there, and then they become part of our program.
Yeah. And so we're able to know a little bit more about them, and we have great intel with our gang prevention advocates. We have a Granite police officer who is a member of the Salt Lake County Metro Gang Unit, and he has intel. So we really do, these last few years, I think we really tried hard to collaborate and to really communicate with people. And so we meet every Friday, we go over every court notice we have, and we make a plan of what they're gonna do. So before I do the reintegration meeting, I've already met with key people who know the students or who know what's going on. So when I meet with the family, the probation officer, I already know a lot of stuff. So we know if it's likely that they might go back to the school, then we'll hold a reintegration meeting at the school, and we'll meet with the school administration. Some of these offenses, and I say, and why they all sound bad when you get the court notice, but sometimes it's an aggravated assault with bodily injury. Could be a student got in a fight at home and they were arrested, and that's not a good thing. But the probation officers met them, like there's maybe less reason to not have them in school, but there's always a reason to know about it, which we're grateful for this law, because before we didn't know. And then the school can help support them. There was a student who accidentally shot his friend, and he was charged for it because of some negligence, they said. And so the charge we got was discharge of a firearm with bodily injury, and it sounded really bad, but we get to dig into it. But we have other ones that we're really concerned about. Why I bring this up here is because if we know there's aggravated circumstances, gang involvement, some other things, we were having them go to Roosevelt with our safe school. But there are some students that we weren't sure yet and what is the right fit. So this North Point Center, without knowing when we first started it, for the habitually disruptive student, it's allowing us to have a place where we can have someone go to school right away, so we're not keeping them out of school. We have some great people over there, and then we can work with them, have them work with the parents and know where they should go. What's the long-term placement for these students? Because not everybody who gets a serious offense is necessarily a safety risk for the school. Some of them also, I should say, it could be sexual offenses. And so if we have a good plan in place, and the school knows there might be a reason to have a placement at another regular school. Again, if we can graduate somebody from a regular school, that's what our goal is, if they can be safe. But this North Point Center has allowed us to have more flexibility with these reintegration meetings, which it has been a real benefit for us. But in student services meetings throughout the district, a lot actually complain about this law because it feels like it's a hoop to go through because they didn't feel like they had flexibility. So they have these meetings and the kid just goes back to school. So I really am grateful for the programs and the options we have. And there's a lot of people out there in the state that are jealous of what we have and they're trying to put those things in place. So this is the main place that we're getting students from for this, for our North Point classroom.
You guys probably remember we did a Friends of Public Education recognition for Carrie Ann Lisby. She's the one who carried the legislation for us on the reintegration meetings a few years ago.
Just some of those numbers I just say really quick. It's possible for a student to get all 4 of those things. So those aren't all unique cases. So like 235 court notices last year, it's not 235 students who we got a notice on. A student could get arrested, then we get an adjudication notice, then we get a notice that they're on probation, and then they're off probation. So a student could get all 4 of those. And we don't always get every notice of somebody who commits a serious offense, only the ones who are taken to, who are booked in DT. And the state's trying to fix that as well. But we do get all of them when they get adjudicated, which is great. It's just sometimes the adjudication is a few weeks after the initial incident, but it still helps us. The North Point Center classroom, so, and I'll try to go fast through these next 2 slides. The student is placed there until the end of the quarter semester to have a smooth transition back to their next placement. It is grades 6 through 12. We have right now 2 teachers, 2 instructional assistants, and an alternative placement coordinator who's also a teacher. She's the one who's doing the intakes when students go there. She's going to meet with the schools when they do a referral for us to go sign the contracts, and she's doing the reintegration meetings with me when we get those notices. And she's been a real asset to have, and the new teachers as well. It was only her with an aide last year for the 4th quarter. So now she's coordinating it for me, and then we hired 2 new teachers who have been great. I had one more slide. Oh, it's because I put up where the map was. Are there? Oh yeah, it was the one with the map. So it's the last slide I have.
I just want to point out, could you go back to the slide that has, thank you. There is a lot of steps that we go through before a student can be placed here. We're wanting to try every potential intervention and address that at the most local level possible, engage with parents to problem solve. So this last chance contract is really we've actually tried several things, but at some point we have to realize that a suspension is actually not beneficial for these kids, right? Sending them home and not allowing them to engage in education is not benefiting their education. And that is the tool, the primary tool that a school has at the local level for the most serious of an intervention. So this kind of takes it to the next level. And if a student's still willing to come to school and the parents are involved and supportive in that, then hopefully we can eliminate the distraction. We can get them focused on their education, help them realize a love for learning, and then get them back into a traditional location. But the reality is we may have some students who just flat out choose to not engage and participate and continually provide a habitually disruptive role in our schools. And so the state has given us the tools under this section of code to be able to handle and address those situations. And we're excited about this program because we feel like we're still meeting the needs of kids, trying to help them understand the privilege it is to be in one of our schools and to be involved with public education and to get that education while giving them as many chances as possible before they invariably, if they choose to go a different direction. We do know, as he mentioned before, that sometimes we do see kids who we suspect are getting involved. They're coming to school, but they're not going to class. And the reason they're not going to class is because they're out trying to do what? They're trying to recruit other kids to join a gang or to be disruptive. And so oftentimes we're finding that when we remove just even one of these students, they might be wandering around a campus with a handful of kids, kind of as a ringleader, that actually eliminates the other disruptive behaviors. And so, again, we're just trying to provide last chance here. We've done everything we can at the local level. I think when our schools first saw this last because we discussed this starting a year ago
In the
about
fall,
what this
last
could
fall.
potentially look like. And I think some schools were like, I got 20 kids for you, right? And that's not what the intent here is. The intent is to try everything we can at the local level, but when they've run out of options and we're still seeing disruptions in our schools, that's not fair to the rest of the teaching staff and to the students and the families in that school. We need to have something else in place to be able to address those needs. So thank you for your support in terms of funding with this program, and we'll continue to monitor its progress and success in terms of eliminating disruptions at our schools.
I'm wondering, so if a student needs to end up at Granite Connect, do they start here?
No, so Connection High can still be a regular referral from their high school counselor, but in our continuum, we are a springboard to Connection High as well when it's appropriate. We try to be careful with Connection High because a lot of students who are there who aren't engaging in regular school, who've gotten behind attendance, a lot of times it's just anxiety and fear of what's at school, and so we don't want Connection High to be a school that feels unsafe. And those students are thriving over there, and there's over 300 students who weren't on track to graduate, and they're thriving. But when we do have, out of these, the numbers over there, the 4 that were immediately placed, I said 3, we exempted. The other one we did refer to Connection High right away because it was the right fit. From some of those that we actually brought out that broke their contract, I was going to say 2, was only one of them. We also referred to Connection High. We also, when a student finishes at Roosevelt, their safe school violation, they're allowed to go back to their regular school. If there's credit issues or other concerns, we set up a meeting every term before they return those who are supposed to. The administrator at Roosevelt will look through the 11th and 12th graders and see if there's any that it's a better fit at Connection than their regular school. Because Connection does phenomenal stuff for the students who should go there. And then he meets with the principal at Connection and makes sure, because we do watch out for gang involvement, things like that. They have gang-involved youth at Connection High, but we want to make sure they're engaged in school and they're not causing problems. So we do kind of protect Connection while we're also doing referrals. But that can be, especially with the high school kids, when we go in for that first meeting, or if they continue, absolutely, that might be a referral to Connection High. But they don't have to come through this to go to Connection High, so it's not like a stop before to go to Connection High. Most students to Connection High will still be referred from their high school counselor.
Yeah, I think that's really an important distinction. Connection High is serving an alternative purpose besides this program. And so this could be a stop along the way, but only if we feel like they could be successful there. Connection is supposed to be a credit recovery and a place to help kids get back on track to graduation. And sometimes they're not habitually disruptive. They just need a different environment to stay focused on school, and that's why Granite Connection exists, as opposed to this program where we're seeing actually disruptive behaviors. We don't want to send disruptive kids to Connection High School. Does that make sense? So they would have to work through their placement here at North Point, and then that would have to be a good option in terms of, or a better option as opposed to their traditional high school. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, and Connection High is an end destination for the most part. Students graduate from there. They love graduating from there. The graduation is great. So, but this is temporary. It should be stopped until we know where the best place for that student to go is. And I'll be quite honest, we do have some students that we are still struggling with where should they go to school, because there are some who are continuing to have problems with it, whether they're at Roosevelt or they just don't come to they don't go to Roosevelt, they get arrested again. But we have, that's what I love about this North Point Center too, our alternative coordinator, because Roosevelt, the safe school too, a lot of those are simple cases. Even though they violate the safe school violation, they have a second drug offense. A lot of times they reconnect when they go back to school. We have a pretty good recidivism rate that they don't go back to Roosevelt. They got in trouble, they got suspended, and they go back. The ones that we're seeing for the habitually disruptive students, or these ones getting in trouble with the law, there's some serious stuff going on, like behaviorally and home. And even though the one on the left's not necessarily, they haven't been arrested, there's not safety things, there's still a lot going on. And at this North Point Center, we've already been able to, in these few months, have a lot of expertise with, like, how do you staff a student who's just struggling, and their parents, and how do you get intense resources in? And that's what we're trying to do with that center, is to do that, so then if they have, like, the habitually disruptive, then we can get them back to regular school with the supports, or to wherever they can go next. So it is supposed to be a temporary place, but I do have some concerns with the ones that we're not able to engage and we're still struggling with, and we're still concerned about them going to regular school. And we do have
There is a provision under this section of statute that if you have a perpetually disruptive student, that eventually if they're unwilling to, what's the term they use in the statute? I can't
to
remember.
benefit from school due to disregard to school rules or authority.
Yeah, something like you have a bad attitude about school.
That's
and
pretty
you're
much
not
what
willing
it's saying,
to-
yeah, you have a bad attitude.
Then we can actually dismiss them from school. We could expel them. But we're trying to make sure no kids fall through the cracks here. This was a big crack where we didn't have a tool and a mechanism. They weren't going to be able to thrive at Connection. They didn't commit a safe school violation, but they're not thriving in their local school location. And sometimes just a change of placement, even temporarily, and reminding them that school is a privilege. Now we're trying to catch these kids that were falling through that crack, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I will add one comment too, because I have these two sides here, and for a lot of students, they might seem like different students, which are in the same center. It's because that center has, again, the good interventions and the minds thinking about what to do with them next. The nice thing about the location, there's two levels, which are two separate classrooms. It's like two different buildings, and so we're not mixing the younger kids and older kids, or the students who were coming for reintegration, who we don't know what to do with next, and the students who are coming for habitually disruptive students. So it's a nice setup over there as far as that. So it is kind of like two things in one big building, which is great.
I just want to take an opportunity to say that this group of students in particular really is served well by proficiency-based learning, I think, because, say they failed algebra, you can come in and say, okay, well, what were you proficient in and what were you not proficient in? Well, let's get you proficient in these few areas, and now you get your credit, instead of like, now we're going to have to start from the beginning and reteach you. Or we can help kids realize confidently, well, you may have failed, but look, you knew all this. It's not like you didn't know anything. This PBL is so helpful when used well by an instructor, right, in this very circumstance. So I hope that we're taking advantage of that in this transition period where you have, more adult to kid opportunity for touch points to really sit down and show them where their achievement has been, because likely they're coming in feeling like they're losers. And so you can show them, no, you have learned some stuff. Look, you got this, and all you got to do now is pick up these couple of things and we can do this. And then I think they have the opportunity to return to their new school with kind of a new understanding. And that is very hard to do on the old grading system. And so I just feel like my instinct is that is going to be a big piece of this transition, is helping that attitude adjustment. The PBL can help with the attitude adjustment. It's a really beautiful thing to be creating a specific thing for 19 students who we are not meeting their needs. I think that it's probably one of the most student-centered things I've seen us do in Granite. And I think it's really beautiful. So good for us, and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have, Claudia, did you have anything? Kim? Chris?
I don't have any questions, but thank you. I think this is a big need in our district, and I think whatever we can do to help these students is I think worth the effort. So I appreciate you. Thanks.
Karen, did you have anything?
The thing that excites me about this, and as I read the slides earlier today, is I think as board members, we've all had calls from very concerned family, or from our friends and family, and it's usually not about their own kid, but their own kid's learning is suffering because of disruptive behavior from somebody else's kid in the classroom. And I've heard the complaint several times that we focus on so much time, attention, and support on the kid that's being disruptive that it's shortchanging the quality of education that everybody else in that classroom has heard. And I'm seeing a lot of heads. So as board members, I know I've had several of these calls multiple calls with this very complaint. So it gives me a little bit of peace knowing that, yes, we can still address the needs of these kids that are just having a hard time. And their behavior, perhaps it's something traumatic that's happening at home, or, you just never know where that behavior is coming from, or perhaps they weren't taught skills in the home to know how to appropriately deal with others and take instruction from somebody besides mom or dad, or, all these things that we hope that they come to school knowing or able to learn. And sometimes they just need a little extra, support. So I'm happy that they now have somewhere to go, not only for them, so they can get their education, but so they're not disruptive and disrupt the education of everybody else in the classroom. So I feel like this is a good win. Like you mentioned it earlier, it was on your slide, a good win-win. It's a win for the troubled student that has somewhere specific to go to address those specific challenges and give them the opportunity to realize what it is a huge blessing and opportunity to be in our schools and take advantage of that, educational opportunity. So, but then equally, I'm hoping that now that we have this, kind of in our future, that our calls lessen because there's fewer of these circumstances happening. To me, that's where my mind went throughout this whole presentation is, yes, we actually have something to tell the parents of this program, or, or say, yes, we have an ability to remove those kids and give them a good place and also create a safe space for everybody else in the classroom. So I like it.
I wanted to just also say how much I appreciate that we're doing this all by using resources that were already existing and were underutilized. That is just brilliant. Let's figure out how to do more of that. Like take whatever's not being utilized and target it. It's brilliant.
And I will add, if that's okay, we got $120,000 from Salt Lake County to pay for one of these positions. We had been working with them, trying to collaborate more on the reintegration meetings, and they are paying with UJDA. They had a grant, and they're paying $120,000. So that's why we have 3 staff over there instead of just 2 that I had funding for originally. And it's been awesome. It's been good to work with them.
So just real quick, will you go to the next slide over, up, down, whatever?
That one?
No, that one. So, okay, Connection High, I think we all know. Granite Peaks, I think we understand. North Point is what we've been talking about. Roosevelt is our safe school for 6 through 12. Is Turning Point the safe school, or
It's a safe school, yes.
So do we have anything like this for our K-5 kiddos that are those super disruptive kiddos? Are we working on something like that? What do we have for those kids?
We're still evaluating what that looks like. And to be honest, I got an email from a teacher today about a situation, but it involved a special education student. And a lot of the times we're seeing these types of disruptions at the elementary level. It is not what you would consider a habitually disruptive student that is defined under statute. So obviously with federal law and special education, we have to there are other considerations, including manifestation hearings and other things, to safety plans and other interventions that have to take place. And we're always, I think what you're seeing, the philosophy in all these types of programs is we're always trying to address this in the least restrictive environment and trying to get them back into the traditional environment when that works and is appropriate and safe for everybody. So at this point in time, the numbers don't justify that per se. Not to say that we don't have poor behaviors at elementary in terms of gen ed students. Does that make sense? And that's not to be critical of our special education students by any stretch of the imagination.
But I think there's also that lag between, and it's mostly in elementary, at least from my point of view, and you can chime in on this or whatever, but in the elementary, we have a hard time sometimes getting them into the special education, to the area where they need to be, and it can take the entire year. And at that point, they're still being disruptive in a classroom. they're hindering learning that's happening for our gen ed students because we haven't been able to, for whatever reason, identify them as special ed and get them in the correct placement. So I guess that's just where I understand what you're saying, and they're not going to be that habitually, what is it, disruptive?
They don't meet that definition,
they don't
right?
meet that, but there's a different definition that still is they're disrupting a classroom. So I don't know.
That's another study session.
The younger they are, I think it gets more complicated, like, yeah, with a disability, but are they doing it to be defiant, are they criminally minded or not? The older they are and they're disrupting and they got suspended already a few times, it's like they're being blatantly defiant on purpose. So if they are, we did actually, one of these numbers right there, one of the 19 referrals that broke a contract actually was a 5th grader.
Okay.
So we worked with a principal who had a severe concern with the girl who was on the second classroom, blatantly defiant, suspended a few times, and possibly some gang involvement. So we went and met with them, did a contract, and then we ended up removing the student also. So it says, the memo says 6 through 12, but depending on if there's specific situations, we already did open the door a little bit. If it's that kind of blatantly criminal type of student, that we need to get some interventions in
And
place.
again, we'd want to try every other intervention at the
Yeah.
local school level to the degree possible. Did you want to say something about that, Doug? Sorry.
My last question, just really quick, I just wanted to understand, so you've got kids in that classroom that are 6 through 12. Is most of their learning at that point then done like online classes and the teachers are there just helping facilitate that? Or is there actual like teachers up front teaching? What does this look like for them?
It is more of the first. The teachers are there, they're not up front because they're with them, but they're working on, if they have a similar curriculum, so there was a few students, again, 8th grade was the most, so there was a teacher. Last year we had, I think 4, I have to look at the numbers again, 8th graders, so it was easier to focus in on that 8th grade curriculum. It was the 4th quarter, so the teacher was looking at that, like what they were doing. And it was easier, but otherwise, it's a lot more difficult with the high school kids. There were 2 high school kids. They were working on credit recovery packets using Edgenuity, so it is more the first that you're saying. But for the younger kids, they're trying to do their curriculum. We actually were working with the schools to try to have them provide what they're already working on. It was the 4th quarter for a handful of them, so we were able to get some of their curriculum. So we're trying to do as the best possible. Obviously, we're still new at it, trying to make the academics. I think we're doing really good with the behavior support, the interventions, trying to do better, but that's definitely where we can improve. And I liked what Board Member Jackson was talking about with proficiency-based learning and take advantage of that. But that is where we can improve for sure. Are they getting behind while they're with us academically? That's hard. 6 through 12, a few teachers. It's a challenge.
And I'm not, that's not any criticism. I just wanted to know what that looked like and what that model showed. So I just thank you so much. I know you're very passionate about this and you're so good at it. So thank you for all your hard work on this and everything that you do for our district for this. I really appreciate it. I think we all really appreciate that.
Can I give him a shout out as well?
You're welcome and thank you.
All right. When we kind of talked about this, we brainstormed with a large group, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Jared. He went and did the work with our principals to kind of get some feedback, try to understand what our intervention process was, built up the memorandum with Doug, and then implemented this whole thing, and obviously with the support of Leslie as well. But Jared's really taken the reins, seen the vision, and kind of built up something pretty unique and cool here in Granite School District. And I think the important thing here is that again, this is another place where kids were slipping through the cracks. And now we've kind of provide some seal there to kind of provide an intervention and support that could be effective. So we'll continue to monitor this and see if there's enhancements or improvements that can be made. But our goal is to try to stop kids from falling through the cracks. And this is helping in that situation. So we're very excited about it.
Thank you.
I just want to point out that Jared was an Excel winner at Connections High School, right?
That's true.
I know you're amazing at this, and so I just wanted to, recognize
I enjoyed
that.
my days at Connection High. I loved it there, yes.
You are, this is like your this is what you do, so, and you do it so well, so thank you.
Since we're spotlighting Jared, his amazing career, famous calculus teacher at Granite High, the last assistant principal of the comprehensive high school, and the originator of AVID in the state of Utah.
He's a pretty good singer too, just FYI.
A lot of people don't know that. That's true. There was a team, but we started AVID at Granite High with a small team. It was a small team. Carrie Graybill at Granite Park was part of that team, and she's kept AVID going. If you know, Carrie's done awesome at Granite Park, but she was part of that small team that started it.
All right, well,
Love
thank
it
you so
there.
much. We appreciate it. I think this has been good for us to hear and understand, especially since it was something that we approved in the budget, so it's important for us to understand it. With no objection, having reached the end of our agenda.